I've been working on my other channel, but if you're seeing this and you read the title, this is about a little thing called security. Now, security has a big, big, intriguing history behind it. 2 years ago, it was sued by two parents in California because it was found to be collecting personal data from students and selling it to third party organizations. And not only that, it has raised many privacy concerns for collecting data unnecessarily and violating FERPA and COPPA laws. So in this stream, I'm going to be reading their terms and conditions because why the fuck not? My school uses this. Thousands of districts across the entire United States use securely. And what happens if one data breach? Shit gets leaked. So we're going to be watching, we're going to be looking at this, and we will be doing some research. Now, I am not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but at the same time, I'm not a fucking idiot. I know when to get a lawyer involved. I will be looking into getting a lawyer involved with my findings so far. But let's just read this together. So we are on securely.com/terms-and-conditions. The official security site, terms of service/service agreement. Effective date October 2024. This agreement is made by and between Securely Incorporated and its affiliates and subsidiaries. Company, or Securely, a Delaware corporation with offices at 322 Lamar Avenue, Suite 107, 1046, Charlotte, North Carolina 28204, and its customer, listed on one or more order forms, each an order executed by and between the parties, collectively the agreement. Company will provide to customer the cloud-based software products and services identified in the order. Collectively, these services, and each a service, the services may include, without limitation, excuse me, company's cloud-based web filtering, online activity monitoring for cyberbullying, hall pass, visitor, and flex time management, auditing software, mobile device management software, tablet and other computer assets, location tracking software, device control software for teacher classroom management, and any other software services offered by company, including all updates thereto and related documentation. Company shall provide all necessary user identifications and passwords for the services for use by customers, employees, agents, and independent contractors, students, and patients, and parents/guardians, in each case as authorized by customer to access the services users. In the event of a conflict between the terms of this agreement and one or more written agreements signed by the parties setting forth the customer's requirements, collectively the customer terms, the conflicting provision in the customer terms shall take precedence. Number 1. Support. Company shall provide customer with support services as specified in the order, the support services. Now, before we continue, let me pull up some stuff. FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. Now, let's go to the official U.S. Department of Education site, studentprivacy.ed.gov/FERPA, FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, right? And now let's pull up COPPA, Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule. So now we have these up. Let's continue on. Number 2, ownership and licenses. A. ownership of the service, intellectual property, company shall retain all title to and ownership of and all proprietary rights, including but not limited to all copyright, patent, trademark, and trade secret rights in and to the services, including all software used to provide the services, and all portions thereof, and all derivatives of improvements thereof, and all related documentation, whether or not incorporated into or used with other software as a service, software, or hardware. Customers' use of the services do not constitute a sale of any such software or any portion thereof. So this is just ownership, licenses, copyright stuff. Company's name, logo, and the product associated with the services are trademarks of company or third parties, and no right or license is granted herein to use them. Company hereby grants customers solely during the term of this agreement a limited, royalty-free, revocable license to use and install the company-provided software, which may include certificates, and pack files, solely on customers' machines and devices and only as necessary or appropriate to receive the services. The client software, and in accordance with the limitations, if any, set forth in the order, and to use and reproduce a reasonable number of copies of any documentation solely to support customers' use of the services. Now, customer being school districts. Now, let's pull up some more stuff. Specifically, the 2023 lawsuit against Securely. Now, let me find the site. If this shit will fucking load. Now, this is a Wikipedia article. It says the neutrality of this article is disputed, so not take this all for granted, but just listen to it. Okay. Securely Inc. is an educational software company based in San Jose, California, and incorporated in Delaware. It develops and sells internet filters and other technologies which primary and secondary schools use to monitor students' web browsing, web searches, video watching, social media posts, emails, online documents, and drives. It's found in January of 2013. Now remember, this is a warning. Do not use school Wi-Fi, because it will still track what you do on school Wi-Fi even if you are on your personal device, and collect it. Reception. Securely has been heavily criticized by people for a lot of reasons, such as providing tools that let schools block websites and the ability to invade students' privacy. As a result, videos have shown exploits to show how to get around or bypass its filtering and monitoring, but almost all of them have been patched. In 2017, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reported on Arrowhead High School's implementation of Securely, which received a large backlash from parents and students. The software monitors activity of school-owned equipment and students' owned devices that are connected to their school's Wi-Fi. Points of contention include the risk of Securely being hacked, the potential sale of browsing and search history to insurance companies and advertisers, and general privacy concerns. Now think about that. They collect a lot of data, extremely personal data, which we will get into what they collect later in terms of service. And if they get If any of that gets leaked, it would be horrendous, especially if it is a large data breach covering multiple school districts, putting several thousand children, maybe even 100,000 children, at risk of losing their lives or being sexually manipulated. It is just not, does not look good, you know? Securely said that they, quote, monitor students' internet searches and social media posts, flag them for references that suggest things such as drug use, cyberbullying, or suicide, and share students' internet browsing histories with parents who want them, end quote. Common Sense Media Director Gerard Kelly said events like the Cambridge Analytica scandal and the Equifax data breach show the need to protect students' data, arguing Securely does the opposite by normalizing a, quote, surveillance state, end quote, where students have to give up their data without their consent. Now, if we look at some laws, right? Students and their parents have to be informed of what is collected under FERPA laws. Now, neither me nor my mother were informed of what they were collecting. I've emailed my principal already about this. He's not responded. Once he does, I will follow up on that. Now back to the Wikipedia. In 2023, the parents of two California students filed a class action lawsuit against Securely, alleging that Securely collected students' private information without their permission and selling the information to third-party vendors. Securely says that its service allows schools to almost achieve compliance with state and federal requirements such as the Children's Internet Protection Act (CIPA). Securely has claimed its services help prevent school shootings by blocking violent content, but has been largely criticized for not providing much data that supports that claim. It has also been largely criticized for the content that it deems violent. Now, it was found guilty, and they had to pay $5 million to those parents. Now, if we go back to the terms of service, and we continue reading, where was I? About Okay. B. Ownership of user data. The services may allow customer to track and gather a range of data and information regarding its users, including, without limitation, now remember, this is personal information of students and parents, information about students enrolled at customer's educational institution, including the student's name, the student's or student's family's address, telephone number, email address, date of birth, place of birth, mother's maiden name, grades, social security number or other governmental identification number, biometric information, and other information that alone or in combination would reasonably allow a person or entity to identify the student with reasonable certainty, collectively user data. Now, the big issue there is that I was never informed um, of any of that. In fact, I told some of my teachers about that. I was like, hey, this is kind of creepy. Did you know about this? And hell, my Spanish teacher was in shock. She seemed genuinely concerned. None of my other classmates knew about this. And one data breach means all of that information could be all over the internet. Now, the fact that school will still preach that you shouldn't even give your age out on the internet, or even the continent that you live on, is absurd when one data leak means your social security number and all of that other stuff is out for the world to see. It's just like, it's absurd. Um, and biometric information is like physical, behavioral things like voice patterns, fingerprints, iris scans, stuff like that, which is extremely personal. Um, Now back to the terms of service. Customers shall retain all title to and ownership of and all proprietary rights with respect to user data and shall be solely responsible for its use thereof. Customer is also responsible for securing and backing up its user data, and companies shall only restore lost user data to its last backup point if the loss was due to a fault in company's services or support services. Customer hereby grants company a worldwide, royalty-free, and non-exclusive license to access and use user data for the sole purpose of enabling company to provide the services and for the limited purposes set forth in company's privacy policy, described below. Customer also grants company a worldwide, royalty-free, and non-exclusive license to customers' trademarks, service marks, and logos as required to provide the services. C. Data use. To the extent company receives any personal information as such term or any analogous term may be as defined under applicable law from or on behalf of customer in connection with company's provision of services to customer under the agreement, customer personal information, company will only use, retain, disclose, and otherwise process such customer personal information for the purpose of providing the services or in order to comply with the law. Any such use, retention, disclosure, and processing will comply with all applicable state and federal laws, including, without limitation, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act (FERPA). Company may disclose customer personal information to its service providers as necessary for company to provide the services to customer, provided such disclosure shall be consistent with all applicable state and federal laws. Company will, however, not otherwise retain those customer information for any purpose other than to perform the services or outside of the direct business relationship between customer and company. Specifically, it will not sell, rent, release, disclose, disseminate, make available, transfer, or otherwise communicate customer personal information to any third party for monetary or other valuable consideration, unless customer has specified in writing a specific retention period for customer personal information. Company will securely destroy such data when it is no longer needed to provide the services, in accordance with the company's standard data retention and destruction policies. D. Data sources. Customer acknowledges that, depending on the type of service company provides to customer, company may rely on publicly available or third-party data in order to provide the services. Customer understands and agrees that company has no responsibility for the accuracy, availability, reliability, or integrity of such data. Customer shall have the sole responsibility for the accuracy, quality, integrity, legality, reliability, and appropriateness of all user data and shall maintain the minimum hardware, software, and connectivity configurations specified from time to time by company as required for use of the services. The supported environment, if any, described in the order. E. Ownership of reports and analysis. Company may provide customer with certain reports and analyses as part of the services reports. Company shall retain all title to and ownership of and all proprietary rights with respect to such reports, excluding customers' confidential information as defined in Section 5 below. Company hereby grants customer a non-exclusive, non-sublicensable, and non-transferable license for the terms of this agreement to use reports strictly for customers' own internal, legitimate, non-commercial, educational purposes. We will be ending the stream here and continuing on